Sup guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is Film Analysis episode 2, and today we're analyzing I'll never learn how to say that correctly the first time, but we're analyzing 50 Shades Darker today. The director is James Foley and the screenwriter is Niall Leonard. I don't know if I actually said that in the first episode, like who the director and screenwriter was, but I'm saying it now, so let's get started. So immediately jumping in, you get the flashback scene of Christian with his mom and his stepdad, I think. It just gives a good inspect into what Christian's home life is. The lighting and angles were fantastic. I mean, the sound quality was great. You could hear them arguing in the background, but like you could see how panicked Christian was under the table. It was great. The shots of the city are gorgeous. After that scene, it immediately cuts into the city scenes, and the shots, I loved them. And the song choice for the flower scene is beautiful. It fit the mood so well. Like, it made me feel saddened that they're gone, but then it also made me remember, hey, he's sending her flowers. There's hope. The slight camera cuts on the new characters, such as Jack Hyde and Layla, like, it briefly showed them, and I loved that because it didn't like fully introduce them yet, because it gets into that later, but then it just gave a little bit, and I loved that. I really appreciated the montage of her thinking about Christian, through like the city and stuff, through work, at her apartment, you know, and then after she gets off the phone call with Kate. The cut from the office to the gallery was gorgeous. I loved it. It was so effortlessly smooth. Her reaction to the photos in the art gallery were great. I loved how they weren't too like over the top. They were just exactly where they needed to be for the right amount of drama. I am obsessed with the way they did Christian's re-entrance.
Somebody likes them. They just want boxes.
It was
Dinner's on me tonight, okay? I'll be right back.
so effortless, and I really appreciated the cinematics of it. However, for a con for that, the dialogue is cringy.
I don't like strangers gawking at you.
I'll be the first one to admit that. The dialogue
Why are you here?
was cringy in that scene.
For you.
What can you do? It could be the book's fault, like I said in the first episode. I loved the desperation in his eyes during the dinner scene. He just looked like he needed her to give him another chance, and I really appreciated that. However, the cut to dinner was a little rushed from the gallery to dinner. You know how I've said several times that the cuts are effortless and smooth. This one didn't really like that. I loved the direction of him talking about his mom while pouring the wine.
My birth mother died.
I thought that was a really good direction on the director's part.
Crack.
I liked how
You can fill in the blanks.
they added life to that moment. I love how happy he looked when Anna agreed to give him another chance. That just showed how relieved he was. When Anna was questioning him, like, about how he needs this submissive, dominant kind of lifestyle,
You need all those things.
I love how he said,
I need you more.
and he just showed so much emotion. It was just gorgeous. The lighting during the kiss is beautiful. This is when they get to Anna's apartment and they kiss, and she's like, I like the scruff. That kiss, I love how it was not just shoved into the camera. I liked how it felt natural and like they really wanted it. However, in episode 1, when I talked about the gifts like randomly appearing, there's an issue with that again. The gifts kind of just popped out of nowhere after they came back from dinner. I didn't really like that because he had no time to get this for her. So I was just a little confused. There was great direction for the Jack scene with the one supervisor, the redhead lady. I forgot her name. But I like how the camera moved. I liked the emotions, the movements of the actual actors. It was just smooth and real. When Layla meets Anna outside of her office before Anna and Jack go to the bar,
It's okay.
I loved the dialogue delivery of her. She really portrayed her character well, and I loved that. The city setting when Christian and Anna are walking away from the bar, I loved it. It could have just been set up that way originally, but I like how they made it look. The grocery scene lighting is gorgeous, and the direction is great. I love how
What'd you buy?
just how fun it is, because like you can tell he's never done his own grocery shopping, and the lighting just kind of made it seem realistic,
Your new favorite.
kind of like how you do in real life, where you go to the grocery store and the lights are kind of just there and a little bright, but like they toned it down a little bit, but I really liked that. I loved the cooking scene when they got back to Anna's apartment and they're like cooking together. It was so teaseful. I don't think that's a word, but I'm using it. Which is very Anna and very Christian together. She was just like playful and he was playful, and I really enjoyed getting to see him be playful with Anna because she was more playful in the first one, and I love seeing him start to open up to her. Quiet music in the background of One Woman Man,
We should take it.
it made it just seem more
Okay.
like real, because like when you're cooking, you like a lot of the time have music playing in the background, and I love how the music still applied to like the situation, because it's just like, I want you to be a one-woman man, and that's exactly what Anna wants Christian to be. And I just really appreciated that little music choice in the background, because they could have picked a random song, but they chose that. The camera angles during that kitchen kiss, like when they kissed in the kitchen, I loved it. And then we moved on to the first sex scene. The lighting is just gorgeous, and the whole scene is directed perfectly. The angles tell the feelings and like how much they needed each other through the time they were apart. And the music fits so well. I loved the upward shot of them laying down, like they were on the bed and the camera was like above them. I loved that. I thought that was a good little kind of pull away from like the usual camera angles. And I loved him playing with her hair. Like that was such a small detail, but I really loved the attention to detail. I loved how dark it was when Layla came into the apartment and was like watching them lay together. Like you couldn't tell exactly who it was, but like you could tell there was someone there, and I appreciated that lighting. The entire morning scene where Christian calls his assistant and tells her to put the $24,000 into Anastasia's bank account. I loved her reaction. I loved Anastasia's reactions to that entire scene. Cause like, and I loved how she actually questioned how he got her bank information instead of just leaving that blank. And I loved how,
No, what are you doing?
That's fine.
cause like you would be reacting the same way if
My bank
someone just put money into your bank account,
For breakfast around here.
you know? The restaurant scene where they talk about
It's all gonna be taken care of.
Layla, I found that very thrilling,
What is it?
because like with the like the slight music in the background,
There was just
and then the
girl in
quick
there,
camera
and
shot,
She was outside my office.
and then pan to Christian.
And she knew my name.
I loved
And
how
she had
it
a
made
bandage on her wrist. was
it kind of
very
took away
strange.
from the typical romance part of it and kind of added more thriller aspects to the movie. The Mrs. Robinson scene is directed perfectly. I love how it didn't focus too much on the dialogue specifically between Christian and Mrs. Robinson, and instead focused on Anna's reactions to that, because that was a very big thing for Anna to discover. The emotions are gorgeous while she's disobeying him. about walking, where he's just like, well, then I'll pick you up. And she's like, no, I can walk. But then at first she was just like, you won't do that, teasing him. And then he was like, yeah, watch, I'll do it. And he was going to. So I just loved how those emotions were portrayed. The scene where they go through Layla's file, I liked how it was lit, and I liked the camera panning on the file. And then that was also something I loved when they were going through Anna's file. I love how they panned on to like the file instead of just like,
Subject works part-time at Clayton's Hardware.
you know, talking about it and not showing it. Dialogue during the if I'm different argument, I found that was portrayed so
Different.
beautifully, because she was just like, well, if I'm different, then
Is that
why can't I touch you? Why can't
Robinson's, where you brought all the other women because
I do all these things? Why are you taking me to the same beauty salon that you took all the other steps to if I'm different? The love map scene where she takes the lipstick and kind of like draws the lines across Kristen. I loved the breathing, the angles, the lighting, the acting. I literally adore that scene so much, and it's kind of the equivalent for how I felt about the Crazy in Love Red Room experience in the first movie. This was exactly how I felt. It was just a cinematic masterpiece. However, I do wish it was a little bit longer. The hair scene is so much fun with like the lighting and music. It just felt so playful and lighthearted. I loved the angles of the stimulating part of the kind of hair scene where he took the silver balls, put them in his mouth, and then you're catching my drift. The dialogue was great, even if there was a little bit of it. I felt like the few words that they said was, you know. The lighting while the cars are driving in from like the outwards kind of side of it, where it's kind of like dark on the outside, but like you can see like the car lights and stuff. I loved that. It made it feel more realistic. The lighting, music, camera angles, and acting during the whole dinner ball scene was phenomenal. I loved it. It made it seem so rich, and I feel like that's what they were going for, especially with the Grey family, because they're rich. I found all the costume designs were gorgeous. However, I can't tell if I really like the auctioneers like acting and dialogue portrayal. I don't know. It just didn't seem very real, but it was okay. It could have been worse. And I loved the sex scene in Christian's old bedroom, and I felt like was a really good choice for that. The lighting and angles in that entire scene just complemented it so well. And then when Anna was walking down the stairs after Christian had left, and she said that she'd take a minute, and she walked down the stairs, and there was someone taking a picture of the Grey family's family portrait. I loved the mystery of it, because like, well, in the back of your head, you kind of know who it is, but you're not like, okay, well, what if it's not him? You know, it's just like a little bit of mystery, and I love it, because we're kind of like adding sub-genres to the romance, and I love that. The lighting during the bathroom scene with Mrs. Robinson, I found that so pretty. Like, you had like the soft, warm lighting on like the silver dress, and like the Mrs. Robinson's black dress, and then like the red accents of the bathroom. I found like that was a very good accent to the red decor. And all the dialogue portrayal in that scene is on point. Mrs. Robinson had like kind of like envy coming out of her dialogue. Wow. Anna had
Do you think you're the first woman he'd hoped?
defense in hers,
He needs us to
but she was right, so it was like positive defense instead of negative,
No,
if you know
he's
what I mean.
changing that.
The lighting, angles, and acting during the car ride when they're going back to Christian's apartment.
Nothing I didn't
I thought that was gorgeous, especially since it was dark outside. I loved how they lit the car and just how Anna felt off-put by what Mrs. Robinson said, and you can tell Christian knew that something Mrs. Robinson had said bothered Anna. Everything about the car garage scene is all through perfect.
Here we go.
Like, especially the audio as she's walking, the echoing of the whole car garage, and just like them talking in the background. I loved it because it made it feel more realistic. Like you were actually walking through a car garage, because you would hear the echoing, you would hear the talking of people from like a mile away. I loved it. I loved everything about the shower scene, like on the boat. Like the water noises, the lighting, the camera angles, the acting, how careful they were about Anna going outside of the lines, the direction, the camera angles. It was just all perfect. The boat scenery in the morning when they're like on the deck and Anna's looking out, it was just beautiful. It was gorgeous, and it could have been CGI, exactly like I said about the plane scene, but it could have not been. The 99% chance it was CGI.
From my yard in Seattle.
But the wind also just made it feel so
Had some help.
realistic, and I loved how they incorporated the wind, especially to like blow in her hair. And I Don't Want to Live Forever playing in the background with the cinematic boat shots. That was gorgeous. Oh my gosh, you don't even know. I found the Jack Hyde casting was perfect because he was just exactly how I imagined him, and I feel like they picked a good actor to play his character, especially in such a complex way. I loved the wide span shot of the Red Room, how they kind of like showed all of it. I thought that was perfect. The sex scene had me screaming. Oh my gosh, I loved the angles, the music, the lighting, and direction. Oh my gosh, it was all just so perfect and gorgeous. Oh my gosh, you don't even know. I love how good the sexual coordinator did on this movie too. Like, I said that in the first one, they did good with like all 3 movies, but I love how they did. The cut to the city is gorgeous. I'll say that about any cinematic shots of the city. I just love cinematic shots of the city. The whole Jack Hyde scene made me like feel scared for Anna, and I felt like the emotions were just really high and tense during that whole scene. And when she ran out to Christian, her just breaking down, it was just so scarily good. I loved how the actors portrayed that. After that scene, they go back to Christian's apartment. I love the tenderness of him asking her to move in.
Some of your stuff.
It's
here.
just so
Keep all of your
wholesome
stuff
because
here, and
they're both just
And you
so
just
vulnerable
left,
in
you
the
know.
robe. Well,
not at your
it's
place.
Anna in the robe, and then Christian's just there in his
Are
clothes
you
from
asking
earlier.
me
But
in
the whole
with
scene
you?
just felt so vulnerable, and like he trusted her to move in enough. I felt like the publisher meeting was paced perfectly, like especially since it wasn't that important of a scene, but it was important enough to keep in for that long and paced as slow as they did, because it did show how she kind of like moved up the chain a little bit after Jack left. I felt like the dinner scene was perfectly lit, perfectly paced, and then the camera angles were great, and I loved the direction of it
In here?
and the acting, especially since she was like taking off her panties. I love how they directed that, and then the camera angles panning down. Then the elevator scene after that is, I felt like that was perfect from the music to the acting. However, there was one thing I didn't like, which was how did everyone like not notice what they were doing, because like she wasn't exactly quiet about it, so I was just kind of wondering how they didn't at least get a couple of glances. The Layla scene and Anna's apartment as she's like packing up a little bit, it couldn't have been more directed more perfectly. Like the timidness of Anna and Layla, you can tell Layla is angry but like there's also hidden emotions such as sadness and jealousy in her actions, and I just loved how they directed it. And then Christian making her kneel,
Anna,
and you can tell Anna just
follow me
breaks
through there.
when she sees that, because she'll never be able to give that to him. And I love how they were able to
Just do what you're told.
show that in her actions. I loved her walking around the city with Sia playing in the background. I felt like that was a beautiful song, and I felt like it fit the emotion so well. It was just such a raw emotion. Now we're on to the scene where Christian says, "Touch me, you have all of me."
But I can't.
I felt like everything in that scene was portrayed beautifully. It was the lighting, dialogue,
Guys, I can't scream.
the delivery of the dialogue, acting, and the direction. It was all just gorgeous, and it fits so well with the emotions in that scene. With like her gentle hand, him pulling that hand to his chest, and he's just like, "You have all of me." I just loved it. The whole nightmare scene after that was gorgeous as well. Like the lighting, I felt like it fit perfectly.
It's okay.
Every night scene just is lit perfectly in these movies. And the whispers of the dialogue of him asking her to marry him. I loved how they whispered it. One thing I missed was the sex scene between her touching him. I would have loved to see that sex scene, because it would have shown how he let her touch all of him. So I just kind of missed that. The direction of the gym scene, it was so silly and fun, and I loved like how lit it was. And I love how he picked her up, put her on the pull-up thing, or whatever it's called. I don't know. And I just loved how silly it was when he asked her again to marry him. I loved the phone call cuts with Mia and Anna. That's mainly just a camera thing, because I loved how
His
seamlessly they kind of like
birthday. When is his birthday?
cut those camera angles. Then after that, a con I had was the plane scene. It kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't really like that. But after that, the dinner scene, it was just so fun and cute. It was like a good little reunion between Kate and Anna, and a good chance for them to like catch up on everything that's happened, like her moving in with Christian. However, she does not mention the marriage proposal thing.
Kristen is good.
When Christian goes missing, I loved how raw the emotions were during that entire scene. You could tell how panicked everyone was and how worried they all were for Christian. And I just loved how raw that was. Then when he comes back, I loved how happy they all were to see him. But I loved how Anna cried. It was so beautifully portrayed. Then after that, after everyone leaves, I found the whole yes scene after that just so gorgeous. Like, he was so happy, and he thought it was just so her to have the answer in his pocket the entire time and to lead him on, thinking she didn't have an answer yet, but it was really just in his pocket the entire time. The sex scene after that, it was perfectly done. I loved how the lyrics didn't come in immediately, and I talked about that last episode with the first movie. With Crazy in Love, the lyrics didn't immediately come in, and it was just like an instrumental kind of bit of it, and I loved how they did it with this part. Immediately, the camera angles were gorgeous too. I just love how they focused on both of them instead of just Anna or just Christian. Like, it kind of symbolizes how they were together instead of separated, or like kind of knew instead of knowing. I loved it. I loved the costume design of the birthday dinner for Christian. I loved all the outfits. It was all just gorgeous, and Anna was beautiful. Oh my gosh, I can't even. But I didn't like how rushed it went from Elena, Christian, and Grace talking to Christian announcing the fiance. But I loved the direction of the drink splashing when Anna threw the drink into Elena's face. You have no idea how bad I wanted to hear Christian and his mom's
Would you give us a
conversation
moment to talk, please?
after his mom catches him and figures out what happened with Mrs. Robinson. I loved the tenderness
okay?
and the lighting of the
Sure is.
bedroom, of the old bedroom scene
Elena's gone.
and the pool house scene. The set design was just
Christian.
gorgeous during the pool house. It was just gorgeous,
is
and I loved the
amazing.
flowers. I loved how the camera angle panned down to Christian on his knee. And then after
Be
they
mine.
said yes, and after they
Sure.
officially got engaged, he put the finger on the ring, and they went out and watched the fireworks. At the end of the movie, I loved the cut to Jack. It could have been done so awfully, but it was gorgeous. And the lighting, the light fireworks in the background, I felt like it fit so well with how he wasn't in the moment. And he could have been, but he wasn't. And we'll figure out why in the third episode. So yeah. If you all enjoyed, make sure to give a subscribe and a like. Maybe comment what your favorite part of the 50 Shades trilogy is, or if you have any other cons that I missed, or pros that you feel like was in these movies. So yeah, thanks for watching!